Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's August 8th, 2022, and today I'm going to be taking care of a couple of beds. One was the broccoli and the other one was red Russian kale. Those two beds have been harvested and everything above the surface of the soil has been put into our composting system. How did I go about harvesting the plants and removing everything above the surface of the ground? I used a pair of bypass loppers. So this is just a pair of bypass loppers that are similar to your bypass pruning shears. So I took that and I went down to each one of these beds. Now it still had all the weed mats, so it was more like this bed here. And I was careful not to nick the drip tape. And I grabbed the loppers and I cut off each one of the plants right off at the surface level of the ground. I wanted to leave all of the root mass still in the ground. Okay, the next thing I did was I came down and there's lots of litter on top of the weed mats, and Thea had gone ahead and really pruned down these Premier 1 kale. They were just big bushes. So she pulled off lots and lots of the foliage from these ones. We'll end up doing this row probably in the next couple of weeks and put in a cover crop in this bed. So lots of leaf material and all of the biomass from above the ground level we went ahead and put out in our composting pile out back. Then we picked up all the material off of the weed mats, cleaned that up, got it off. Then we used our Greenworks battery operated leaf blower to blow off all of the material that was, so we didn't want soil on the weed mats when we're going to be folding back the weed mats. Now you see we don't burn holes in these weed mats anymore. That's the way we used to grow our crops. We found it easier to manage the beds by having a single row. A single row with the weed mats going right up to the midline of the row, and having the drip tape right at that midline of the row, and then just trying to keep these weed mats pretty clear during the summer months. Then after we harvest them and we clean off the surface of the weed mats, Thea came through and pulled all the staples out of the weed mats that were holding it right up against the plants, pulled out the staples that were holding the drip tape, and then folded the weed mats back. Now you could see some dried up foliage that was underneath the weed mats. That's from last year's cover crop. Because what we'll do today is I'll run the garden tilther down here and tilt up probably a ½ an inch thick deep of the soil, and it's rounded. I won't reshape it. I thought about using the broad fork, but I'll wait until springtime to use the broad fork. So the drip tape is pulled off to the side. Weed mats are in the paths, so everything's in the paths right now. And I'll go down with the garden tilther, which is like a tiny rototiller. So this is our garden tilther right here. And the tines are very short on this, but it's enough. And I basically just break the surface so the seeds can sit, instead of sitting on the surface of the soil, the seeds can actually get down into the soil. And this is operated by just a 20-volt DeWalt drill, a battery operated drill. And the trigger is just a rope cord that will turn it on and all. So I'll make a couple of passes down each one of these rows. Then I'll go ahead and I'll use our nitrogen fixing bacteria, an inoculum. And I'll turn this off right now. Oh, the other thing I would say is this morning I went around and I used the weed whacker to cut down as much of the green, all the weeds and grasses around the margins. I'll come through later and blow all the leaf matter off, the material, the weed matter off of the weed mats so that they stay pretty clean. So let me show you the cover crop seed that we're going to be putting in. Okay, so we basically have like a 5-gallon bucket of this seed, and this is what the seed looks like right here in this bowl. And there's, as you can see, a whole variety of different seed in this bowl. And having the diversity of different seeds, it really helps out an awful lot. So what are the seeds in this particular mix here? So we have wheat, we have peas, and peas are a legume, so they are going to fix nitrogen into the soil. The wheat is going to be very good for the bacteria and for the fungus as well later on. Triticale, daikon radish. So the daikon radish is a deep diving plant that's really going to help to break up, dig down deep into the soil. The vetch, another nitrogen fixing plant as well, that's hairy vetch. There's forage collards, another green leafy plant. So berseem clover, yellow mustard, rapeseed, and balansa clover. So in order to ensure that we're going to fix nitrogen, which is one of the sources of protein, of the amino acids to make protein in the plants, we're going to, and these seed we got from True Leaf Market. So we have an inoculum that we're going to be using to inoculate these seeds. So these seeds have been stored in a cool place, cool, dry place. Let me see, do I have a little water mixing bottle here? So this is just a spray bottle with water right here. And this is our seed. So I'll go ahead and spray, just moisten the surface of the seed down, and then I'll put a very small amount of the nitrogen fixing bacteria in here, just enough so that the seeds will get a coating of those nitrogen fixing bacteria. Then I'll spread the seed out in the beds. Now this all happens after I use the garden tilther. So that's the process. We've got our seed, we got the nitrogen fixing bacteria, we have a water spray bottle. We'll mix this up and then we'll distribute the seed as best as we can in the beds. So that's our process and our plan for starting our cover crop. jumping is due to hitting some of the subsurface root mass from the red Russian clover here, same as in the broccoli bed. See, the soil's pretty dry except for where the drip tape was. You may notice some of the small toads moving out. The toads really help with a lot of the pest problems that we can have. Toads will actually go after the voles. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and is this camera facing down enough? Okay. It really only takes a small pinch to do this whole unit here. So that's more than enough for this whole bucket. The bacteria is viable for probably 24 hours. So you don't want to wait too long before getting the seed. Just going to do this way here now. Want to get the spores on the surface of the seeds. Lots and lots of seeds here. Okay. It would really be good if we do get the rain that's forecasted for today. But I'll go through and hand water I'll put the drip tape back and hand water beds. So if I had not tilted the soil, the water would just be running off constantly. So this has to be watered very stepwise so that the surface starts to absorb some water bit by bit. And then the watering will start to soak in as time goes on, but the margins are so dry, you see it wants to run off immediately. Try not to step on the hose, Kevin. I probably should have ran the tilter down both beds twice like I did this bed. Too much water initially is going to be a problem. So you got to look for any places where it starts rolling off the edges. So I may harvest potatoes today, I don't know. But coming back and trying to remember to water this bed a few times, just trying to get the absorptive capacity of the surface of the margins of the beds to increase. We want it to be able to absorb into it instead of running off the sides. So instead of that dry powder, it takes a little bit of time. almost time for breakfast, so just finish this one watering, then go in, have breakfast, and come out and water again, because the sun's coming out and it's going to be another high 90s day. And with the high humidity, it's going to be really outrageous. Right now the winds are calm, so this is good. It'll take at least 3 good times of watering the sides of this bed before it really starts to absorb the water. But a heavy downpour right now would not be good. It'd wash all the seed off. And although I can as it's the heavy stuff, I keep it right towards the center of the bed because that's where the drip tape was, and it has a little bit easier chance of absorbing the water. So time to go have breakfast, and then I'll come back and hit this again. Okay, just had breakfast. Got a longer hose to go down here and use the wand, which has, I don't know, 1,000 tiny holes in it. Let's see if we can see this. So I'll try to put a link to these. So these hose heads really having so many holes, it really helps to decrease the pressure with which, as long as you got enough pressure in your hose as well. But anyways, I did water the beds one time, went in and had breakfast, came back, put the drip tape back out where it's supposed to go in the center of the row. We'll leave that on during the middle of the night. That'll water some, so to get the central part. And then, but I'll still have to water at least once a day if there's no rain, probably twice a day. After breakfast, I came out after putting the drip tape down, then I came down and I watered it again. I'll water this at least 1 or 2 more times today, and the reason is, as you saw me go down with the tilther off to the sides, so we're only using the drip irrigation down the center of the rows during growing season, and that really maintains a nice column of water that widens out some, but it isn't as wide as these beds are. So the sides of the beds are really powdery dry, because we haven't had rain in so long. So to prevent, in case we do get a good downpour, to prevent all of the seed rolling off the top surface of this, we need to get the soil relatively soft. Now, could I run a rake down here and all? I've done that in the past, and I've really distributed the seeds inconsistently. It hasn't been as well laid out. But by tilting it first, I probably should have double tilt this side as I did this side. Just helps to break up a little more soil. But I watered it again with the wand. Now I'm going to go do some other things, probably harvest some potatoes. But so this is where we're at this point. We try not to put the weed mats back on top of the seed that are here, because of the undersurface of this weed mat has a fabric on it that it adheres to things. So this fabric, unfortunately, you can see some of it here, it'll hold onto the seed and pull it back up onto here. So we really don't want to do that. I did have a mesh that I have put down in the past, especially when I plant carrots, which helps to decrease the evaporation when it's on hot sunny days, helps to give the seeds a little bit more shade. But it's too much for me to come out here and put that big heavy mesh down. This isn't a light mesh. So I'll just water this a couple of times a day for now, hope for some rain that isn't downpouring, and let these seeds start to germinate. So the seeds need the warmth, they need the oxygen, they need good soil contact, and they need lots of moisture. Then the seeds will start to send down a root, and then start to send up the first cotyledons, whether they're dicots or monocots. So that's where we're at this point. Just wanted to share the steps that I go through for laying down a cover crop. And the cover crop came from True Leaf Market. I'll try to remember to put links to the things that I've been using in the description below. So if you found this video of value, please give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and by all means, folks, take good care of yourselves, stay safe, and think about doing gardening for yourselves in the future. Bye-bye now.